Hi, Michelle.
Hi,
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So just for your reference, I know you've already seen the data. We've already kind of touched on some things and gone over it. And this will just be up for our reference.
Okay.
And as you reflect back on your lesson, how do you feel it went?
So as I think about the lesson overall in terms of my original goals, excuse me, I think that at the beginning of the lesson, the before reading, when I was prompting them with fuzzy mud, I had to provide them more guidance and thinking about those clues to help to make an inference and build the eye wandering. But then through that guidance, they did start to make connections to the clues of the farm being secluded, how it doesn't look like a farm. They were starting to think about how it might be a prison. So I had to probe a little deeper in terms of thinking about, we know what a farm looks like. In the text it's saying it doesn't look like a farm, so how is this going to help us understand the story? So I think for that specific passage that I had pulled out, they did need a lot more guidance and prompting through it, but eventually they were able to get there and give individual responses. So thinking about what Jack had said, he made the connection that it was a factory because he remembers reading it in the book. So he remembered that, but then he also said it was dangerous. Kaylee was thinking it could be a prison. So they were starting to connect more that something isn't safe at this farm. So I wanted them to be able to think about, as we're thinking of our own thinking, our metacognitive strategies, and our wanders, I wanted them to be able to identify what quote from the text helps you to now make that thought process. So I thought that with guidance in the before reading section that they did do well with that.
And had you taken in any consideration as to why maybe they had needed more guidance with that?
I think they may have needed more guidance because the clues were more talking about barbed wire, security guards, so maybe they might not have as much background knowledge in terms of that. Eventually they were able to think about it being a prison based on the barbed wire, so that's something that they could connect to, but it was difficult for them to think about why it's called a farm if it's not actually a farm. So I think that was really a higher level of thinking outside of the box type of concept that they were able to come to, but not independently.
Was there anything you could think of that could maybe activate their, because from what I heard you saying, that you believed it to be that it was background. Was there anything that you could have possibly done to extend that background for that particular text or that excerpt from the text?
Absolutely. I think now that you're saying that, knowing which words would present a challenge for them in terms of background knowledge, I could have provided pictures. Maybe pictures of a farm as well, and see how we know what a farm looks like, but now let's look at what is a barbed wire, what is a security guard, maybe comparing the two and now being able to see, they're saying it's a farm, but this is one picture of a farm, this is everything they're describing that's at the farm. So I think maybe a visualization, an actual concrete picture would have supported that better and helped them make that connection a little bit easier. But then, so after the before reading, we moved into the actual core of the lesson, and I started my one-on-one reading with Jack because normally I start with Kaylee, as I know that she needed more guidance, so I've always started with her first, and then have checked in with Jack and continue with my one-on-one reading. So Kaylee's been showing me that she's feeling more confident, as well as her responses, especially the response that she read from her chart yesterday, because I had them share from their double entry journal the wonder that they each came up with. So based on the several she came up with, she was really showing me this is something I can start doing on my own. Whereas with Jack, I knew he still needed more prompting. However, when reading with Jack, I was proud of him because he noted that there was a part of the story that was a flashback. And I didn't prompt him with that vocabulary. I just praised him for saying that. And I said, how do you know? What in the text shows you that it's a flashback? And he said, well, it says back in October. So that really shows me that he can make these inferences, these connections, this metacognitive thinking. He is capable of doing all of these things. But Kaylee is now moving towards where she can do it on her own, and Jack is still needing guidance, even though it's not the concept he needs guidance with, it's more the process that he needs guidance with. So getting to that point. So...
Okay, well, for 1 second, let's go back to Kaylee, and then we'll touch on Jack. So what I heard you saying about Kaylee was that before she needed a lot of guidance, and you always worked with her first, knowing that. And now you're seeing kind of a need to pull away from that guidance because she's doing so well. What are your next steps in that to kind of, you're saying she needs less guidance now, so how do you picture that looking? Are you going to challenge her? Are you going to just take the journal away, keep it? What are you thinking?
That's a great question. So I think for one, I definitely want to make sure I'm having that conversation with Kaylee and letting her know, I feel like you are you're understanding this. Like, tell me what you're thinking. Do you feel like you're getting this? Is this becoming easier for you? Do you find certain strategies are helping? Like, do you like using the journal? Do you feel like this helps you? Or do you like using the sticky notes? Maybe I could say to her, like, I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to use the journal? Do you want to use the sticky notes? Do you want to use both? This is going to be your decision. What do you want to do? So I think maybe with her, in terms of that independence, put it more on asking her what she would like to do, because we've done all of these strategies. Now she gets to pick which one does she like best.
Okay.
So
it sounds like you have a plan moving forward with, because your ultimate goal, and although I'll kind of summarize, was to have the students independently using metacognitive strategies. So you feel she's on her way with that.
Yes, I do.
And then moving to Jack, you had said you were proud. He made a connection to a flashback, and it's not necessarily the concept, but the getting to the process. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yes. So I feel that if I felt he was struggling with the concept, then he wouldn't be able to make a connection or make an inference right away once he does. So I think when I'm trying to explain the process of it, it's the time of getting us to start reading, for him to focus on his reading, and then for me to prompt him to say, okay, remember, I want you to stop where you think you could have a wander. And thinking back to Kaylee, when I was working with her, she had said to me, like, I want to stop. She recognized, like, I want to stop here. And I think with Jack, we had read through the whole page silently, and then he turned to the next page. So
why do you think that is?
I think he was just waiting for me to maybe interject and maybe, say to him, oh, I'll just wait for her to tell me when to stop. So I think that if I didn't have him go back, he would just continue to read. And we've gone over in different examples of what it looks like to just read through, not stop at all. You're just reading the words. Reading the words is not making meaning, and that's the whole purpose of why we're reading. So I guess that's where my struggle comes with him is it's that process of, if I let him, he would just continue reading through without stopping. Not because he can't stop and make a connection, make an inference, make a wonder, but unless I'm prompting him. So I think that's really where I'm struggling with, is getting him to do that more on his own without prompting, because I know that he can based on the responses he gives once he does. So if it was the concept and I said, okay, now can you make a connection here? I'd say, I don't know what a connection is. I don't know how to make a connection.
Right.
I don't know what to connect to. That would help me understand it's the concept he's struggling with. But I think really with him, it's that process, and that's where my struggle.
So what specifically has told you that it's not the concept? Like, have you done any assessments or from your observations?
So I think what leads me to that conclusion right now is when I do have that conversation with him, his output. So what he is actually finally responding to. Okay. And I see it in his writing as well. Like, he has the ideas, he has the concept, but it's getting him to that point. So,
well, I did notice that he had 2 to 3 redirections or clarifications, and since you are saying that it's not the concept, you've observed it. His answers have shown that when you have been guiding him, he's been able to make those connections and flashbacks and connect to the text. He said he had read it previously, so that was good that he recognized some of the concepts in the book. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
So, okay, so then let's move to the process, and you said it's getting to the process. So really what I heard you saying was, it's not truly the book. He's engaged in the book. It's not the metacognitive strategy concepts. He seems to understand how to do them, but he's just not. It's getting there, doing them on his own, and he's just reading to read. So,
and it was interesting because I had talked to Dr. Lee about this struggle as well, and during our reading of the article about the dog say, the Newsella article, I was asking him a question, and same thing. He's like, I don't know what to write, and he just waited. And I said, Jack, I'm not going to tell you the answer. So take time and just think about it. And I gave him that time, and then after that, he made the connection.
Right.
So
now, what do you attribute that to? Do you think?
I think the fact that I took the control away from me and also reassured him, this is 100% on you. Like, you, and I told him, you can do this. You are capable of it. I know that you can connect to this. I know you can do it. So trying to reassure him, build his confidence, but also let him know, I can't just give you the answer. So I think that, and same thing related to those stopping points, he's waiting for me to say, okay, stop here.
Right.
And then he will, and he'll make the connection.
Right.
So
maybe it's something at school or at home.
I feel, and I talked to Dr. Lee about this as well, I feel it's a learned helplessness.
Okay.
I feel that he has gotten used to just letting somebody else either solve the problem or tell him the answer. And I think that's his initial go-to, that if I just wait, somebody will tell me.
So how have you kind of tackled that?
So since this is just a new... and I really just came to this revelation yesterday, so I think that now, being the conversation I had with him today, I'm trying to do more of that. I'm trying to continue to say to him, I know you can do this, and I'm not going to give you the answer. And I even made it a point for both of them to say, if I give you the answer, I'm not helping you. And that's the whole reason why I'm here, is to help you.
Right.
And that's what I really want him to understand is it's not that I want to see you struggle or not know it right away. I want you to be able to figure this out because I know you can. And so it's kind of the bigger picture. It's not just about this book, it's about yourself as a reader. So maybe I could even make that point to him, telling him it's not just about the sinking of the Titanic, but this is about you as a reader, whether you're reading a comic book or an article or a newspaper. You know, how are you going to be able to connect to what you're reading on your own?
And I mean, I guess that it could have been throughout his years of schooling that it's just been kind of drilled into him. Stop here, and the teacher will tell you this and do that. We learned that.
Absolutely, and
when we did our theory presentations,
right. And I know myself that I'm guilty of that as well.
Right.
And it was interesting. I even had a conversation with Kaylee today when we were talking about, you know, the children reading to the dogs and how it helped to improve their reading and how they felt about reading. And Kaylee said, you know, one thing that annoys me about teachers, no offense, is when I'm trying to read a word. And the teacher just gives, the teacher just says it. I'm like, wow, that...
Do you feel you have done that, or...?
I'm sure naturally I have. Okay. Absolutely. And so it really got me to start thinking, like...
Did she say why, or...?
She did, and I said, can you tell me more about that? She said, because I want to read the word myself. I want to figure it out. And I said, Kaylee... There's nothing wrong with what you just said. Right. You know, that's great.
So
you're
supporting her.
Yes, like that's, you are correct in that. And she's like, I just need time. I'm like, that's perfect. So I think that, you know, the fact that it's the student telling the teacher that, reflecting in that way really goes to show, you know, we think a lot about what are the students thinking, but what are the students thinking themselves? On the other
and
side,
I think back with Jack, you know, I think of kind of when someone, you know, my brother runs a lot of marathons, and you know, have people in your family or friends run marathons. I think about how they start, and how do they start?
Right, at the start line, ready to go, but not moving yet.
Yes,
anticipating.
But even before the marathon,
practicing.
Yeah, and they don't. You know, my brother didn't start right off the bat with 15 miles.
Walking.
Right,
jogging,
and then a mile,
walking,
and then 2 miles, and so on. So I'm thinking with Jack.
So getting him to build up to that. Getting him to build up to that point.
Because I heard you saying that he just kept reading the whole page, and then that's... So, what do you think you could do there as far as... Because you're saying it's not the concept, it's the process. It's getting him there. So maybe, like you had said, you just had said smaller parts or chunking.
Right. Thinking...
And then kind of...
Having him take more ownership of that in the conversation of... Take your time with this.
Right.
You know, just when you're ready, but I want you to think about how this is going to help you. So trying to have more of that conversation.
Right.
And maybe giving him a goal, like to focus on. You know, so maybe during this reading today, can you try to make an inference before you turn the page? Right. You know, maybe not to say... After paragraph 2, can you make an inference? But before you turn the page, can you try to make an inference?
Or could he come up with
come up with his own question, even?
Or own goal.
Or own, right. So he could choose, what do I want my goal to be after I read this page? So
because I know you had said ownership. You want him to take ownership of it.
Right, so ask him, what goal do you think would help you?
Right. And maybe, and like with what you've been working on, maybe you could hone in on, I think you had said metacognitive
strategies, yes. Definitely. So I feel that I have a better idea now of how I can start supporting Jack. You know, when we think of scaffolding, I always think concretely as in terms of, I want you to be able to do this concept with, you know, I'm going to show you, then we'll do it together, and then you'll be able to do this concept on your own. But it can be bigger than just the concept. Absolutely. It can be getting to that point. So I think I have a better understanding of where I need to go moving forward with him and with Kaylee, pushing her toward more independence.
Okay. So where do you feel you're going to go with Jack from here on out?
So I think the first thing that I would like to do is really have that conversation with Jack in terms of setting a goal.
Okay.
You know, I want you to set a goal for yourself today for your reading. What do you want to be able to do before you turn the next page?
Okay. Are you just going to leave that open
So
for
I
him
think
for anything that he wants to do, or are you
come up with a list?
Okay.
Come up with a list. You know, do you want it to be that you're going to use a metacognitive strategy?
Right.
Or are you going to...
So kind of that controlled choice.
Right. So I'll give him an option of having him tell me what have we done during our reading.
Right.
So maybe he can start to think about, I used my thinking about thinking, I made an inference. So having him think about all those things we've done during reading and what do you want your goal to be before you turn the page.
And then kind of redirecting him back to that.
And maybe
the lesson,
maybe even having a little post-it note that says, before I turn the page, you know, just a reminder, like, before I do this, you know, this is what I need to remember to do.
Right.
So.
Okay. What can I help you with?
I think that
do you feel comfortable with the next steps?
Yes, the data definitely helped me to see how they were responding. It was helpful that you noted how often he needed redirection as well as a bathroom break. So that helps me to think about that perspective as well, and how Kaylee was responding when she was working independently. So this definitely helps me moving forward.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.